Hello and welcome back. Now we're going to be starting a brand new quest and we'll be learning something really interesting. But let's first talk about a concept that has generated some controversy about the origin of life. This controversial concept is the theory of abiogenesis, which believed that life existed from inanimate forms. That is, life originated from non-living things. Now imagine that living things like us originated from rocks or stones. Now how possible is that really? The fact is that no one has ever seen a stone change to a rat or a human being. But we do know that living things exist, and they have ensured their continuous stay on Earth. Now, one of the known characteristics of living things is that they have a lifespan, which is the period between their birth and their death. Now, let us imagine that the first man that ever lived did not produce offspring. Now, would you and I exist? We wouldn't. But thankfully, he did produce offspring. So let's see how organisms are able to produce offspring in a process called reproduction. So what is reproduction? This calls for a definition. Let's define it. Reproduction is the ability of living organisms to give rise to new organisms of the same species. Individuals of the same species here means that humans will reproduce humans. Rats will reproduce rats. Hibiscus plants will reproduce hibiscus plants, and so on and so forth. The purpose of reproduction is to ensure the continuity of life. But what happens when life cannot continue, or there's no reproduction? Extinction, which is a pretty sad event. This is considered to be the death of the last individual of a species. Now, generally speaking, there are two ways that living organisms can reproduce, and this brings us to the types of reproduction. Now, based on the number of parents involved, reproduction can either be asexual or sexual. Let's first look at asexual reproduction. During asexual reproduction, a parent organism, a single parent organism, divides into two identical daughter offspring. The offspring produced in this type of reproduction are said to be clones because they are identical. And that means they look exactly like one another and exactly like their parent. This type of one-parent reproduction does not occur in higher animals like humans, but occurs in most unicellular organisms like amoebas, and we also see it in plants. One interesting thing about asexual reproduction is that it occurs quite fast because only one parent is involved. Now, the other type of reproduction I want to tell you about is called sexual reproduction. This type of reproduction involves two parents of the same species which come together to donate half of their chromosomes each through gametes to form an offspring with a complete set of chromosomes. The offspring combines traits and features from both parents and may not necessarily look like either parent. One interesting thing about sexual reproduction is that the offspring produced are genetically distinct. They are different from one another and from their parents. Now, this has an advantage. It allows for the offspring to better adapt to their environment. But unlike asexual reproduction, sexual reproduction could take much more time and processes to be accomplished. If a species, for example, that only reproduces via sexual reproduction is really threatened, it may go extinct, as there might not be enough time for it to reproduce, which is pretty sad, like we said. So, in summary, what have we learned? We've learned about reproduction and that it ensures the continuity of life. We've also looked into the types of reproduction. We talked about asexual and sexual reproduction. Now, if you love biology as much as I do, keep learning, and I'll see you soon.